Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Wind and Thunder Gaming. This week we have the COGs Season 2, Week 3, and we had some decent games. Very close despite, the play seeming kind of one-sided. Um, like in this first game, for example, TFD versus the Gentlemen. Gents were running an entirely new roster. I'm going to be releasing a video going over the new competition rules that I believe Muse is applying to the COGs. I'm not entirely certain, but there will be a video coming on that later. We have Metalloid and Shooty Pointy Thing coming in for TFD. All the Pyramidians in this game ran Gat Mortar, 2 Merc Cannons. Junker ran Gat Mortar and Merc Front, and the Exterminatus is a Goldfish with Carronade Front and Mortar sides. Don't know how I feel about that. I mean, they didn't really get a chance to use the mortar sides, but you can see why they did it. They have a massive stripping cannon in the front, so hull armor usually goes down pretty quick, but the theme for this entire game was kind of both teams trying to feel each other out but not really doing anything, and both were very scared to initiate. So here we are starting at like the 16-minute 14 mark. Before anything happened, this game is 38 minutes long. This is a really long game for a brawly team, which was very surprising. So we see this first initiate coming in from Metalloid, who starts poking his head up the left side, but he gets to about the side of the building before he realizes, oh shit, I'm actually 2v1ing right now, this is a terrible idea, and he goes to slink behind this wall here. Now, his teammate was really slow to catch up and do anything, because he wanted to make sure there's no spots on gravitation, so he wanted to make sure gravitation wasn't going to come around this side. That ended up letting blue team get a kill on Metalloid. The gents were very good at controlling their engagements, save the last one, which was absolute ass. Exterminatus got way out of place during the final engagement. And I don't know how much help the Exterminatus was for stripping the Metalloid's armor, but definitely helped a little bit. I mean, heavy rounds on a heavy carronade will make it shoot quite a bit further. Now, here, Shooty Pointy Thing had an opportunity to take out gravitation before the Exterminatus came in to help, but the major factor here was the wind kept pushing him into the building, so you could tell he's just having a terrible time there. Ram from wind, pushing him into the building, loses arcs, and then he hits this bridge arc right here for quite a decent amount of hull damage there for the speed he was going. Then he just gets torn to shreds by the blue team. Yes. Yes, indeed. Exterminatus not really using that mortar side. You'll always see the engines on the Exterminatus buffed. Now this is where a split spawn comes in from the red team, and very mistimed and miscommunicated, so this didn't end up working at all from what I can remember. Okay, so here we go. We got blue team sitting in the middle with red with a split spawn. Now they have a choice they can make here. They can take a chance and hope that red team did split spawn, which they don't know for sure at this point. But, from the spectator point of view and not from in-game, you can tell that it would be really advantageous to cut off one of the red trips from regrouping. Problem for blue team is they don't know that that's possible, because they think that red team might be together. So blue team ends up taking the chance and cutting one of the red players off. You can see this massive distance in between these two ships. Oh, gravitation with some terrible rams on that building. wind will screw you over. Trying to thread the needle on maps like Parisian and Duel at Dawn will oftentimes get you killed. I'm surprised we didn't see Metalloid end up focusing the gravitation after how disgruntled that crew probably was after ricocheting off all that scrap. Quickly stripped that armor down, and then the mortar just tore them on up. Shooty pointy thing coming quite quickly in here. Another thing to note is a lot of the captains have impact bumpers, except I think, no, wait, Cold Curse was using it. But a lot of them like using impact bumpers, and for the amount that have impact bumpers, not a lot of them were using it once they ran into structure. So I believe during the cast we said that, you know, in this game, as a captain, it's very important to be as maneuverable as you can. So wasting a slot for impact bumpers for something that's really difficult to judge. I mean, unless you're like charging in full bore and gonna ram them, you never know you're gonna like bounce off a bunch of buildings. Unless you have godly foresight. So I think this is where we see another lull in the battle. Blue team managing to solidify a very nice lead. But now they're playing fairly cautious. They lost sight of each other. They want to just play it very safe. One thing about Parisian is when they first built it, the end map constraints were a lot larger and farther out. So nowadays we see a bunch of people end up running around the edge, thinking they can run, but hitting map edge and then just getting stuck, and a bunch of other shenaniganry ensues. Okay, so here's our next engage. Again, I'm pretty sure map edge is like right there. So they have to be super careful. Exterminatus, they want to stick really close together so they can body block for each other, shrug damage off, and help each other's ships in that way. Exterminatus gonna be leading, trying to block some of the shots that the red team's getting off. You saw the red team just now turning to use their front guns. 3 mercs were tearing into the blue ships. That ram, you have to watch that back engine of the goldfish. Sticks out a lot farther than you think, and it can really screw with your teammate when you throw their arcs like that. But gravitation not able to quite keep up with the amount of DPS that red team had been throwing down on his armor. Mortar's tearing into the balloons, and then his balloon ended up going down, and he had to deal with the mortar damage going straight to his hull. Now, Exterminatus is 2v1ing. This is where red team begins to start catching up. You see red finally using impact bumpers because he knows he's going to be hitting that. I think the majority of his crew was probably on hull. Metalloid trying to help his teammate. And he does. That mortar just barely, or Exterminatus rather, just barely surviving. But once the combined fire of those 2 ships gets on him, he cannot. That's one thing that a carronade fish cannot do. You cannot 2v1 in a carronade fish. That is not a thing that will ever happen. It's such a support ship, even with those mortars on the sides. You would have to have excellent crew communication, excellent piloting, and all these factors are made even harder by the fact that this map has a shit ton of wind on it. So now it's blue team's turn to try and regroup. Red team wants to, play it very safe, being at a 1 kill deficit now. knowing that shooty pointy thing is very weak. So yeah, they're playing very safe. Trying to be as careful as possible. Skip a bit. There's some Merc fire coming in. This guy was like, man, these guys are really boring to watch. And Cordy's like, yeah, it doesn't help that it's essentially a sniping match with brawl teams. Playing super defensive. They want to keep Shooty Pointy Fang in the corner, and I don't know what I think about that. They want to leave Metalloid to brawl and Shooty Pointy Fang to keep their side marks on the blue team. Not really allow them to get comfortable. Okay, so this general vicinity, I believe, is where the last two engagements come to fruition, unless this is a different building. This GAT, completely useless. If should be using its marks. This was an excellent, I don't know if this was intentional, but this was an excellent bait. Exterminatus pulling back, pulling the shooty pointy thing in, but gravitation doesn't end up focusing the shooty pointy thing. He starts going for Metalloid, and then you'll see him switch focus to the shooty pointy thing. Exterminatus ends up putting his balloon into the ground. Here. But yeah. See, even 1v1ing is extremely difficult. Your engages have to be perfect. Like, you do not want to engage within gun arcs in a carronade fish. You want to catch them off guard and get on top of them before they realize where you are. Panic tarring, very, very bad. And now Exterminatus is hoping that the terrain would do the rest of his work, but they didn't. So the gravitation now has to focus its energy on the shooty pointy thing while Metalloid comes up behind it. But I believe the Exterminatus ends up going down here. I'm not entirely certain. The ship definitely goes down. Fade Shade could not even hold. I mean, who could? The 1 pixel health going on. So he ends up going down. But now Metalloid has free reign to get on this goldfish. Gravitation with the best body block of all time. I forgot about this. Cordy shouts Shoryuken in chat, and I feel like that's accurate. Uppercutted his Garnarks away from the Exterminatus and ended up, managing to shrug off a lot of damage. But, you know what? Might not have been the best idea, but it looked pretty badass. And, you know what? I probably would have made the same choice if I was in his position. How's the Exterminatus doing? I believe the third one in this list is his main gun, so he could have ended up providing some extra help, but I think his engineers were busy. That Merc, that far out Merc, I think ended up taking that front gun out, that or the GAT. Tough break for the Exterminatus. I feel like he could have helped his teammate a bit more in that situation, but, he might not have been able to raise his altitude high enough for that to happen. So now we're tied, and there's another massive lull in the battle. Oh man, I'm skipping quite a bit and hoping that I don't. Okay. I believe this is it. Exterminatus was bouncing off a whole bunch of scrap for no apparent reason there. Okay. So I believe what we end up seeing is the gravitation end up pulling up, getting his nose shot, so he backs off. Exterminatus comes in and just gets torn up because gravitation can't charge in because of this scrap here. So this was a terrible initiate on the blue team. They would have been much better off just going around that side. I believe map edge is that way. I don't know. This map is like trying to look at my mini map here and figure this out is damn near impossible, especially without a compass. Look at this. Two brawly teams. This team has sniper weapons on them and they're still not shooting. Like, I don't understand what is happening right now. I think they're all too busy trash talking. Finally, Mercfire raining in. Like this scrap here did an excellent job zoning blue. They would have been much better off coming around this side. Or having the gravitation switch cover and then coming through here. But even then, they don't have a lot of horizontal movement in between these two structures, so you know it's debatable. I would have liked to see them try and do another one of those baits with the Exterminatus. Um, didn't end up quite going their way the last time, but I feel like this initiate here was terrible. The Merc shots rain in, take out their main cannon. They're armorless and main weaponless right now, so that is a terrible situation to be in. Bouncing off that scrap, you have to be super careful. Again, this scrap was one of the deciding factors of this entire game. And the Merc, or rather the Mortar Gat, rains in and absolutely cuts through the Exterminatus like a hot knife through butter. So there's that game. What could blue team have done to improve? Just, you know, fix that last engagement. Yeah, definitely, you know, rethink that last engagement. That was very bad. I don't mind seeing this goldfish, but, you know, in the future it might want to take something that complements itself a little bit more to long range play, just as a contingency. Maybe an Artemis, a nice disabler, so that, you know, you can disable them momentarily and charge in. I don't know. You could use a Merc, even. Give that little bit of extra piercing, but then it's explosive damage less. So, yeah, it was the only reason they took mortars is because they didn't want to have to rely on the Pyramidion for, you know, they didn't want to have to rely on the Pyramidion's mortar. But they, as a blender fish, you know, you have to depend on your teammate to be putting down DPS. You're pretty much just a support ship in that instance. I'm gonna fix that for all you people on the minimap. So yeah, I'm gonna switch my overlays. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Now we got some canyon ambush for you. Brood versus NAF, two very high echelon brawling teams. I'm gonna just skip to the first engagement. So, let's talk builds really quick. We have these two boats have Gat mortar on the front with like flare mortar and flare Merc or something between the two of them. Very bizarre side choices. I don't know if I entirely agree with them. But yeah, that was a choice that was made. Now, the most interesting build by far, we have Admiral Quackbar with a carronade right side, Gat mortar left side, and a mine launcher front. Now, we know that this is completely coincidental, but ended up being very advantageous. Admiral Quackbar, okay, here we go, Flamer mortar on the Hammerfall, which is really bizarre. I mean, I don't think they ever got a chance to use either of them, like their sides. I rarely ever use my sides unless they're mercs. But yeah, we see Sammy BT start laying down all these mines, and then very conveniently that's the side blue is initiating from. Here, I'll show you on the map. That's the general vicinity that this engagement takes place. Blue came through this way. I have the most accuracy of a bird on opiates. We have these mines. Doing a great job of zoning. Now, what was interesting about the red team is they knew they had to start brawling, but they ended up getting very dangerously close to their own mine. Now they don't know where the Varkalak is, or where he was coming around, but they ended up finding out pretty quickly. I think I would have agreed, just due to these mines, for a target change between the two of them. We end up seeing Jace completely focus the Hammerfall, and Sammy BT or the Admiral Quackbar end up focusing the Varkalak much harder. Now, you'll see Jace eventually bully Hammerfall into a corner and then knock his arcs off. It was a very interesting play. Also backing into buildings not particularly advantageous, but now Swansong saw this opening. He's facing this pillar. He's like, okay, now he has no arcs. I can keep that going. So he ends up pushing his nose back that way and just laying into him with mortar fire and ramming him in terrain. Very excellent play. You see these scattered 3 mortar shots, or these scattered 3 carronade shots coming from Sammy BT. Just tearing the ship apart. Did a very good job zoning with Tar, completely taking the Varkalak. So now the Varkalak's left out to dry. He knows that this isn't a place he wants to be, so he starts backing up very clutch-like with the kerosene. I agree with that completely. This was probably the best choice he could have made, and the only reason it didn't work too well is because he ended up not seeing the wall as he backed into it, which happens eventually. YouTube, man. YouTube VODs are ass. Okay, so Varkalak ended up backing up into that and bouncing off. That's what happened there. Swansong doing a very good job of breaking these Pyramidians' arcs, just keeping them off their teammate and themselves very well. These carronades did a very good job armor stripping. Absolutely tear ships up. I implore you to look at the armor here. Boom, gone. Combined Gat, double carronade, goodbye armor. A very interesting choice from Sammy BT, but I think it ended up being greatly advantageous. So now, okay, I think we can skip to here. Oh no, that's way too far. My bad. Okay, here's where I thought I was looking at. So red team ends up coming around the corner, but NAF end up holding this down very well. Refreshing myself on how they initiated. Ah, yes, both of them just tear into the Swansong double gat. They're not letting the Admiral Quackbar. The thing about Sammy is he will get really in your face until you switch to target him, and then he'll switch into tank mode and let Jace finish you off, because yeah, it tends to work very well. Jace getting the hell out of dodge, tarring everything on his way out, but not so much that it would hit his teammates. That was a very nice bit of foresight from Jace there. This was, of course, Jace's last game as a captain. Getting busy with, I think it's band and work, I think. Anyway. Sammy BT doing a very good job of tarring. Nice thing you want to note here is he's showing them his ass end, which is very thin on a junker. It's very hard to hit the hull from the back, just because of its thin, already thin hull profile. Plus, you only have a very, very small window to hit. Okay. Here, I probably would have liked to see them focus down the Hammerfall. Like, Varkalak is way out of this picture at this point, so I think it would have been much more advantageous to go for the Hammerfall. Sammy VT could have pulled up, brought his arcs, and then the Swan Song could have just helped tear him apart. Instead, we end up with this really bizarre kind of split focus. Quackbar trying to stand up against Gat Mortar from Hammerfall. Doing a very good job. His armor's fine. Somehow igniting mortar shots, I assume. So very, very bizarre. Weirdest ram of all time. Okay. Again, like, there, Hammerfall, the target they didn't choose to focus in the beginning, ends up tearing into their hull. Swan Song is now left out to dry. All of his engine's gone, and that's when you know it's over. When you're at 1 pixel worth of hull health, and you know your engines are gone, you're just like, welp. Good fight. Good fight. I'm gonna skip. Okay, this should be them just entering the canyon. Right there. This YouTube VOD hates me. It just does not want to load. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. I think I'm not going to do 720p because 720p doesn't like to load for me right now. Okay. So blue team comes through this entry point, but this cloud cover is blocking the red team, so they end up walking into a death trap without even knowing it. And the funny thing is, both these ships have flares, but they weren't cautious enough to use them, so I question as to why they brought them in the first place. Seems like a wasted slot if you're not going to use them. Like, what are you... Oh, we know we're being shot at now. Time to use flares? That's not right. You'll definitely want to start using your flares before you, just to prod clouds, make sure you're not walking into an ambush. This is the reason why. But yeah, now the entirety of the skies are just flared. Swan Song descending into tower, not really giving any of the shits. Ended up killing Varkalak's teammate. Surprised we didn't see the Quackbar turn around to try and help get the Varkalak off of him. Ugh. Excuse me. Ate taco salad, it was delicious. So Varkalak did the right thing, started retreating, wants to regroup. This is a very, very hard position to come back from. At a hull disadvantage, team ship-wise. So NAF have to be very smart about how they initiate it, and you know, red team is going to keep up the pressure. End up charging on in. So going to meet up behind this, I believe. Can't quite tell the Hammerfall's position. Yeah, they're gonna end up chasing the Varkalak. Okay. Okay. Hammerfall getting in there, very nice. But Varkalak still has focus down on him. You have to be very careful. Let's go back a couple seconds. I think what they intended to do is have the Varkalak back up and then allow for a switch of focus, but red team never really fell for that, so Varkalak started engaging and approaching while he was still being focused down. So I would have liked to see him keep backing up until they switch targets to the hammerfall and then try to rush in and help afterwards. Just so he wasn't taking all the damage. Like, he can't. He's at half hull. Yeah, he just couldn't tank it. But there is a chance that they would have still just chased him down, but then they would have had the hammerfall on them. So, yeah, that's what I would have done at the very least. So yeah, I'm going to change my overlays and I'll move on to the next video. Okay, and welcome back. We got the raft versus the paddling. I don't know if I've done this yet, so I'll do it again. This is where the VOD is located. A lot of backups are kept here. This is where you can also find the Sky Tournament VODs if you're interested. So yeah. Raft versus the paddling. We have Lucky Duck with dual flares on the sides. Interesting choice there. Wants to wreak havoc on that balloon. We got the Lucky, or rather the Dirty Duck with dual flares on the sides. The Lucky Duck is the galleon. So, Lucky Duck has their classic Merc, Lumberjack, Flak left side, and watch Carronade right. Now the raft has done one of the best jobs against the paddling in weeks. I think 3 kills is the highest we've seen. I think Pastafarians only managed to get 2 kills on them in the finals tournament of last season. So let's start with this first engagement that went completely wrong. So we had Echoless Quack use cloud cover to pull up behind this rib, but then their teammate was so far behind that it could not supplement damage at all. I don't see. I would have liked to see the Echoless Quack just hang behind that rib and wait for the Junker to come in. Because the thing you gotta realize with the Junker, right, is it will take longer for it to get those guns working. So you have to, I guess a good rule of thumb would be always send your Junker in first, because it's going to need to run in and then turn its broadside. And I can't count the amount of times I've seen miscommunication happen between teams where this exact thing happens. Like, okay, let's go in. That's a lot easier said than done. Even if, like, the Dancing Feather isn't even kerosening here. There we go, finally. That should have been, what are you doing? Like, okay, I'm gonna go back just to make sure that it wasn't kerosening that entire time. Okay, good, it was. But then just cuts it randomly. What is... Like, this entire time, Dancing Feather should have been kerosening. Like, briefly does it. But I think this was a bit of hesitation coming from the Dancing Feather. Like, okay, I can kerosene in and try and help, but at this point, is it even worth trying to? Because it's gonna die in 2 seconds. As you can see here. So, yeah, need better communication. Let the Junker go in first. It's slightly more durable, and you're going to need to wait for it anyway. If you don't wait for it, then you get 2v1 and you die instantaneously, so it's worth waiting for it and sending it in first. Pyramidians should never go in unless their Junker is, like, right beside or in front of them. So now, this is where we see the first kills that have gone down on the pedaling in a long time. Echoless Quack manages to sneak up just out of frame to try and take the Dirty Duck out. But as you can see, this is still lagging behind Kerosene Tar and Phoenix Claw. Alright. Phoenix Claw, Hydrogen. Alright. Dirty Duck ends up taking massive amounts of damage. Dancing Feather ends up focusing Lucky Duck. I mean, splitting your focus is a really dangerous thing to be doing. You just realized why. If Dancing Feather managed to start attacking on their right side instead of wasting time shooting at the Lucky Duck, then they might have been able to save their teammates. So now the Lucky Duck is hung out to dry. All Dancing Feather needs to do is avoid those long range arcs. Even if they did get in range of those, beautiful play actually, using that Merc Cannon to disable those heavy weapons. I like that choice. He's gonna ram, try and get some of those arcs off. Nice. That was very convenient. Now he has his right side arcs on, and now Lucky Duck doesn't have any. Now it's a race between the Dirty Duck, the Echoless Quack, about who can get back into the engagement the quickest. Dancing Feather managed to put the Galleon out, I think. There goes one gun. It's nothing you ever want to see that Merc Cannon just kind of raining in. Trying to disable the broadsides. But now, because the Echoless Quack was charging in help, Smollett now got behind it. And in hindsight, I think I would have liked to see the Echoless Quack go to engage the Dirty Duck. I mean, trying to out-brawl Smollett's ship is very difficult, but I think Frogger's boat, I think that's Frogger piloting that, had that Galleon on lockdown. I mean, it was going to die regardless, so Echoless Quack definitely could have engaged against the Dirty Duck. Probably wouldn't have won, because trying to win a brawl against Smollett is hard as hell. But I think it would have been a better choice than just letting it get a bunch of free shots from behind you. So now we have Lucky Duck trying to get some long range arcs on blue team. And they managed it. That one bullet looked like it ricocheted, but it was Dirty Duck. Okay. So Dancing Feather manages to take out Dirty Duck here. This is where things start to go downhill for blue team. A couple very suspect choices. Go down. Mainly, I cannot. I'll show it when it comes into frame. Okay. You see this area here? Never try to go through that. Never ever try to go through that. Go through this way. Trying to thread the needle here is damn near impossible. Can't count how many, even like recently, like really recent, how many ships I've seen die in this area. Echoless Quack was going full bore and then hits this for whatever reason. I think his vision was obscured by cloud cover. See this? Again, don't try and go through here. Every time I see people try and go through here, it's at a really awkward angle, and then wind just ends up screwing them over. So go through here, just take the extra couple seconds, use kerosene or something to get around this corner. It's safer. Like, look, now you're boned. Echoless Quack randomly bounces off this turbine for whatever reason. Again, I think blinded by cloud cover, they were just going full bore and wasn't able to change trajectory in time. Yeah, just get out of this area. Like, go around here, and then you have this perfect, open, beautiful place. And then Dancing Feather could back up. But you do have smaller right behind you, so that is something you never really want. But yeah, Dancing Feather having a tough time. Again, I cannot emphasize, do not engage there. Going out, coming in, whatever, just don't do it. Okay, going out's probably easier, but going in is definitely like a death sentence. Especially if your teammate lies right on the other side. And you might say, well then that's just extra time I have to spend trying to get my arcs on them once I come through here. It's like, you can't get through there. It's impossible to begin with. I mean, you can, but you know, when you have the pressure of your enemy shooting at you, that just puts more stress on the pilot. And he ends up making a bunch of really stupid choices. And again, the angle that he was at, it would have been better just to okay, now Frogger here makes a really dumb choice. And he knows it was a dumb choice, but it was heat of the moment shit. He ended up spawning here, looking that direction. Just could have ran, disengaged, been fine. But instead, he turns his Merc cannon forward and starts shooting at them. Now, there's all sorts of problems with this. Mainly, you're trying to outsnipe the Lucky Duck, and while the Dirty Duck's charging you with a Merc cannon. That's not ever gonna work under any circumstances. You might have been yelling at the Echoless Quack to go in, but even then, it's a bad idea. Another thing is, he's trying to keep his Merc arcs on, which are really narrow, so it ends up keeping him in their arc longer when he could have just broken arc by flying backwards there. Not that he should have been flying backwards, he should have been flying straight, kerosining away. Because paddling is that area is probably the last place they want to be, because it's very hard to defend the galleon from that position. The ribs, I mean. But yeah, very, very bad choice from the Dancing Feather to try and initiate against that. And that ended up being their downfall, but Raft definitely put the biggest dent in the paddling we've seen in a very long time, so very promising roster from that team. So yeah, that about wraps us up. Who will we be seeing next week? Let us check. Is this 2 weeks old? Because if this is two weeks old, I'm not going to try. Falconeers, gentlemen. Rudder Squadron. It wasn't the Falconeers. This is this is wrong. So this is the state of the COGs as it was a week ago. So what we'll be seeing is the Brood take on the paddling, probably with a new pilot. I don't know. I think Jace would come back to face Smollett and Squash in Mortal Kombat. Black Flight Squadron versus Polaris Company, or rather, the Flying Dutchman. Black Flight Squadron versus the Flying Dutchman. I think. Gentlemen are out. Flying Dutchman. Rotate the cock. Yes. Okay. So it'll be BFS versus Flying Dutchman. Merrymen versus whatever poor soul has to face the Merrymen in the upcomers COG. And then the Brood and paddling. So those will be great games next week. Hopefully Cordy's mic will be working and Swallow isn't sick any longer, so they'll be able to work on that. I mean, they had a nice 1 week hiatus with the Spire tournament and Mini Rumble, which is now a Sunday thing. Pull that up. So here we have the Sunday Rumble. And then the bottom thing. It's kind of cut off. But yeah, it's a very kind of... Earth hates it every time I use this word, but a tad bit casual. In that there's no real restrictions as to who shows up. He doesn't care who you bring. You bring 8 people and you get to play high level games. That's kind of the general idea. So they'll all be best of 3s, and we'll play all the games for as many teams that show up that day. Yeah, be a fun time. So there's that, and then there were the new competitive scene rules that were brought up. I have to add another screen region. So yeah, have a good one. See you next time. I got 2 more videos on the way. I'm going to be analyzing the 2 final games of the Mini Rumble, and I might take a look at the competitive scene's new rules. Give a brief run through, probably like 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. So look forward to that in the future.